This week on Making Contact.
When you dam up those rivers and you flood those lands, that's real sacrilege to people who have that connection to the land.
As we look for a solution to global energy problems and a way out of the climate crisis, some are turning to dams and hydroelectric power as a source of green energy. But at what cost?
What is green about projects that displace people, that inundate fertile floodplains? What's sustainable about removing people from their homelands and pushing them into the margins of industrial economies?
On this edition, we'll take a closer look at the damage caused by hydroelectric power projects, and we'll visit a community trying to keep their culture and homeland free from the destructive influence of river dams. I'm Jen Sheehan, and this is Making Contact, a program connecting people, vital ideas, and important information. People have been building dams since ancient times, but the 20th century saw the growth of dam projects larger than any the world had seen before.
Build a dam in the wilderness and the world will beat a path to it. Millions come to this once desolate spot to see this engineering wonder, to hear the story of Hoover Dam.
From the 1930s onward, projects like the Hoover Dam and the massive Grand Coulee Dam put the U.S. at the forefront of hydroelectric technology. These large dams were the product of a time when human progress was measured in concrete, steel, and optimism.
Here is where man conquered this mighty river.
In the U.S., they generated much of the power that fueled economic growth in the second half of the century. And their example has led to a proliferation of large-scale hydroelectric dam projects around the world.
At this point, we have clogged 2/3 of the world's rivers with large dams.
Jason Rainey is the executive director of International Rivers, an organization that works to stop destructive river projects around the world. He says the environmental impacts of dams are well documented.
They flood fertile floodplains. They change the dynamics of rivers, their functionality. That includes removing sediment from downstream. The functionality of rivers is such that they provide fertility to coastal areas. They provide nutrients to coastal fisheries. These sorts of processes are disrupted with large dam development.
Despite promises that dams provide a clean, green source of electricity, Rainey also says there's growing evidence that dams contribute to global greenhouse gas emissions.
Reservoir areas produce methane, and this is particularly true in tropical areas where inundated lands and trees and vegetation rots in the bottom of reservoirs, and it emits this gas that is 20 times more potent at trapping heat than carbon dioxide. I have seen reports that suggest that reservoirs themselves contribute up to 4% of human-caused greenhouse gases. That's the same percentage as the global aviation fleet. So it's not a small matter.
Not only do large dams cause environmental damage, but the human costs are also high. Worldwide, these projects are often built on indigenous lands, and their effects are stark.
Very often you find in situations throughout Asia, Africa, Latin America, the communities that are most directly impacted are losing what is by and large a self-sustaining lifestyle that is river-dependent, and not only losing those skills, those traditions, and that anchoring to place, but you also find these communities then forced into other economic arrangements where all they can do is sell their labor to the highest bidder or the lowest bidder, and you find communities often economically dislocated and destroyed. And this is true even in circumstances where communities receive compensation or resettlement. We find in our research that it's rare where communities are better off economically after a dam is built.
That was Jason Rainey, Executive Director of International Rivers. We'll hear more from him later in the program. Although many of the largest dam projects these days are in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, it's not just a problem of the global south. In the Canadian province of Quebec, a mega-development project called the Plan Nord, or North Plan, is underway. At its center are several dam construction projects. But the dams are being built on traditional Innu Aboriginal territories. Since the project was announced, the Innu community has mounted a strong campaign of resistance against the Plan Nord, as reporter Aaron Lakoff found when he traveled to northern Quebec in December 2012.
It's just before Christmas, and I'm on the reserve of Manioutenam, an Innu Aboriginal reservation located about 600 miles northeast of Montreal, where the mouth of the St. Lawrence Seaway meets the Atlantic Ocean. The reserve, home to around 1,100 people, is a tight-knit community bustling with activity. In some ways, it's a community like any other small Canadian town. The people here love hockey, donuts, and country music. But the Innu of Ouachat and Manioutenam have also been engaged in a long, arduous struggle against development projects which they say attack their culture and way of life. A major part of that development is being done in the name of clean, green energy, as Elyse Vollant explains.
C'est sûr, quand ils parlent de l'énergie verte,
surely when they speak of green energy, it's not green energy, because first they're going to destroy the river with dams. And in the river there are often salmon and other fish. It's other animals who will be destroyed by this too. And to get to the river, they will have to cut trees. What is this green energy when you start to destroy everywhere, trees, rivers, animals? This is not green energy.
Dams are a major part of the Plan Nord, a 25-year project to exploit the natural resources in Quebec's northern regions and sell them to the rest of the province and even abroad. The Quebec government says the project will bring in $80 billion in investments and create 20,000 jobs.
As Premier of Quebec, I believe in our social programs. I believe in our healthcare system. I believe in our education system and the support we give to families. Because I believe in all of this, I also know we need an economy able to support our healthcare system, our education system, and families. That's why the Plan Nord, as a wealth creation project, is so important for the future of our social programs.
That was a TV election ad for Jean Charest, the Premier of Quebec between 2003 and 2012, who spearheaded the Plan Nord. Already, construction has begun on a series of massive dams along the Romaine River. The largest of the 4 dams will be over 350 feet high.
The Romaine complex, it's located on the Romaine River, which is on the north shore of the St. Lawrence. And the complex is 4 generating stations with reservoirs.
Gary Sutherland is a spokesperson for HydroQuebec in Montreal.
It has a total annual output of about 8 terawatt hours. Just to maybe put that into perspective, 8 terawatt hours is pretty much the energy that's used by about 470,000 average Quebec households. In terms of advantages, this is a clean, renewable energy source. Hydropower is it's a reliable source of energy. It's one that we can use when it's associated with reservoirs to respond to demand. In electricity, when there's demand, it has to be met immediately.
Under the Plan Nord, the Quebec government is hoping to become a world leader in so-called clean, green energy. But many are concerned that the project is anything but clean.
It's a huge, dirty project.
Chris Scott is an environmental activist with l'Alliance Romaine.
But it's also a project that is, it'll be draining the river, flooding huge amounts of boreal forest, but also so it creates a reservoir. But also at certain points where they want to create the electricity, they're essentially forcing the river out of its normal course into an underground tunnel.